Today's edition of Mac Voices is supported by MacVoices Magazine, our free Flipboard magazine that brings you some of the best Mac, iPhone, and iPad productivity tips on the web. High in signal, low in noise, just like Mac Voices, MacVoices Magazine includes information on how you can get more out of your Apple technology. Subscribe at macvoices.com/magazine or search for Mac Voices Magazine on Flipboard. Welcome to Mac Voices. This is the talk of the Apple community, and I'm Chuck Joyner. Folks, I just finished doing a review of the new Drobo 5D3, and it seems only appropriate to follow it up just a little bit later with a talk with Drobo's CEO, Mihir Shah. Mihir, it's great to have you back. Thanks for being here.
Hey, Chuck, thanks for having me. I think over the last couple of years, we've built a great relationship of getting in touch with you when we're releasing our new products. And again, thanks for welcoming me out to Harrisburg when I came out and visited you in person. So excited to be back on the show.
Well, I was excited to have you here because nobody ever comes my way. I always have to come to the West Coast to see you guys. So when you said you were coming, it's like, wow, great. Something a little unusual. So I understand you have a few stories you want to tell, and also talk maybe about the introduction of not just the 5D3, but also your other Drobo model.
Absolutely. So we have been extremely busy at work, and I think I've told you this, and I've told all our customers this on various outlets, that I'm extremely passionate about customers. And I think last year I visited about 500 customers, or at least talked to 500 customers. For 2017, my goal was to travel 100,000 miles around the world visiting customers. And I think I've done about half of it this way through. And one of the most interesting trips that I have had in the last quarter was I actually spent some time in India and to understand a little bit about that market. And some of the interesting things that I learned about that Drobo is actually a very, very, very strong brand in that market. Some of the highlights that I learned, 70% of the Bollywood films released in 2016 were actually either stored or edited off of Drobos. The biggest selling or box office selling movie that was ever released, all stored and captured on Drobos. And then the Indian National Archives, which is kind of the equivalent of our National Archives, all the historical Indian photos are being backed up on Drobos. And so, which really got me excited that the fact, how is it that, this brand is so strong when we weren't directly selling into that market. And so we're excited about that market. The fact that we have a little bit of ubiquity in terms of when they say the word storage, they actually say Drobo instead of storage. So it kind of gives someone back home the feeling of, hey, look, we're doing something that makes a difference, and we're continuing to innovate. And then kind of on that note, we launched the 5N2 back in March, I believe, and literally we've been sold out. I mean, we have not been able to keep up with the demand of that product. And so we're working with our partners out in Asia to continue to manufacture and up the volumes on those. And so it's been a very, very popular device. And then, the 5D3, just launched, I want to say about a month ago. And again, very, very strong demand, double the speed of its predecessor, up to 800 megabits per second. If you add a cache in there, a MSATA cache, you get 30% performance boost. The thing that really excited me was that we have the ability to trickle charge. And so if you have your Mac, your new Mac connected to it, it continues to trickle charge your Mac. And so you can actually, you don't have to have your Mac plugged in. It won't charge it fully, but it will continue to keep, kind of the current state. So we're excited about these new features. Again, the demand is absolutely fantastic out there, and we're going to continue to release products and features this coming year.
In reviewing the 5D3, first of all, I did not know about the trickle charge. I did not have that experience, but I guess I didn't have it everything disconnected long enough. In fact, I probably had power to it all the time. So that is just a nice little extra benefit. But I was telling you earlier that in some ways it's a difficult thing to review because it works like every other Drobo that I've owned. I mean, yes, there's some software additions that you can do to it, but it's wickedly fast. There's no question. And I didn't even have the MSATA card in it. But it's nice to see that you all have not, with the features you've tried to add in software, you haven't strayed from that initial vision of good, simple, basic, fast, reliable, expandable storage.
Yeah, and that's always been the focus. And we have we get customers that have issues with the Drobos they buy, but they're starting to tinker with our software and the apps and those types of things. And our device is really made for that person who, you set it and forget it. And so I'm glad to hear that you've had that experience, because at the heart of what we do is we want to make things simple for everybody. In this kind of complex world where, I always say IT has become so complex, but how can you simplify it? How can you add features or products that my wife or my father can use? Because let's face it, all of us are creating more data. This is being recorded, I'm sure, on one of your Drobos, and at the end of it, you're going to be looking at probably 500, probably almost a gig type file, which you're going to go edit for final distribution. And things like cloud and complicated devices, it's just difficult for the layperson to use.
Your point about creating more media is something that I keep harping on with people, that our phones are getting more resolution in the cameras. Therefore, the image files are bigger, and you don't want to lose those things. And you need a place to store them that is reliable. Yeah, you can go to some cloud solutions, but they're expensive and they're also slow, and there are a number of issues. And with the Drobo, I mean, I keep saying it over and over and over. I have never lost anything I had stored on a Drobo. I can't say that about any other product, but with the Drobo, I feel just about as secure as I possibly can feel.
Yeah, we're happy to. I'm extremely happy to hear that experience that you have, and I think again, if you take a simple approach, and folks tend not to tinker with it and take it for how it's supposed to be set up and how it's supposed to be used, we have excellent customer reviews and supports. And you take a look at the 5D, right? The 5D, the previous generation, we had, I want to say, roughly 40 or 50,000 units of those sold. And out of those units, when you look on some of the review sites, we probably had 100 or so or 150 reviews that were below kind of one or below like 3 stars on some of these sites. I mean, that's a pretty good ratio. Obviously, we'd love to make everybody happy and we'd love to go do those things. But when you're looking at 100 specific cases out of 40,000 sold, it kind of makes me feel good as a manager over here to say, hey, we're doing the right things. Now, is it we're doing everything perfectly? Absolutely not. But, we're working very hard to make things simple, not only from a product standpoint, but also from the support interaction and those types of things. So again, we're making those investments, but and I've told you before, we're a small but mighty team, so some of these things do take time.
Yeah, and you know what? You're always going to have those few bad reviews. I mean, I don't care what it is. And the thing is with your units too, it may not even necessarily be the Drobo's issue. I mean, it may be, but it also, because you're putting third-party hard drives in that you have no control over where I buy my hard drives, those can be issues. There's so many things that could go wrong if we even need to try to explain, those less than 3-star reviews. But I am curious, though. Do you have any idea, when you say tinkering, people are tinkering with it, what kind of things are they tinkering with that are causing problems?
It's usually third-party apps, right? So we'll have certain apps. Again, I'm not a technologist, but these are some of the things that are support people talk about. There's one called SSH Bear, I believe. There's Couch Potato. There's some of these kind of third-party apps that we've kind of opened our app ecosystem to, usually cause the Drobo to do certain issues. Now, if you have our apps and we have Drobo-related apps like Drobo Picks and Drobo Access, we've QA'd those apps. We've sent them through our engineering team. They make sure that they work. They tend to not have those types of issues. And so The third-party app stuff definitely causes a lot of issues. The other issue that we get most often or not is, people will have an old Drobo, which is hooked up to their Mac, and Mac has updated their firmware or their operating system. That party has not chose to update their operating system because there's certain other software stuff that they've bought, and I'll call one out like Adobe Photoshop, because if they migrate to the new one, they have to go on a subscription plan with Adobe. And so those are kind of the challenges that we run into, saying, hey, look, we're trying to keep up with what Mac is doing. It's difficult for us to manage what your single license purchase on an Adobe from 5 years ago, what system it works with. And so having those conversations, it upsets customers sometimes, and I get it, right? You don't want to go from a fully paid license to a subscription model, which a lot of these software companies want you to adopt now. But those are cases that come up quite a bit. I mean, we just had a conversation with a person who has a Gen 1 Drobo. So first Drobo ever made, and we couldn't, our new product couldn't, that he wanted to buy, couldn't talk to his old version of his Mac operating system, and he was refusing to upgrade his Mac. And so, you run into those a lot. Again, so that kind of tells you he's using a Drobo 7-8 years old. It's still working, but he wants to migrate to a new one, but he can't because of existing software that he's purchased.
Right. That's interesting. I'm not really surprised, and because let's put it this way. I know several businesses that I'm associated with that they hesitate to do those upgrades for whatever reason. Might be the Photoshop example is a good one. Might be something completely different. Might be just that they know the workflow with this one and it works fine and that's all. And then there are security problems and there are virus problems. And I'm thinking about more on the Windows side, obviously. But the same scenarios, they just can't understand why everything can't continue to work, and yet time marches on. And we've all had to continue to upgrade. I remember plugging in SCSI cables, for crying out loud. Yeah, that's exactly it. That's the old SCSI voodoo. You have to chuckle about it now, but because everything now is pretty much plug and play. But that means that everything has to be upgraded.
Yeah, and we have to continue to innovate, right? If we stop innovating, we stop delivering products to kind of our customers that are upgrading and doing those types of things. And so we get kind of stuck in between this, where we want to kind of make everybody happy, but at the end of the day, if we stop innovating as a company, we stop to exist. And so we constantly have to have those internal battles, and at times it's going to upset some customers, but it's a fine line that we have to walk.
I'm getting vibes of the whole USB-C transition that Apple is or has gone through or is going through with the MacBooks and the MacBook Pros, where we're giving up the legacy USB connectors and now everything is here in the new USB-C connector. And people don't like it because now they have to buy dongles, and now they have to carry dongles around with them. And yet, the more experience I have with it, it's a great decision because it opens up the path for backward compatibility between USB 3 and Thunderbolt 3. And it's not that much trouble, but some people don't want to do it.
Yeah, there's a great book that if you ever get a chance to read, it's called Crossing the Chasm, right, by Geoffrey Moore. And, he postulates that among a customer set, there's, early adopters, there's kind of the early majority, the late majority, and then the ones that really wait until kind of the end. And so I think we're in this market right now where, Apple's continuing, they continue to innovate. And so you're going to get the early adopters to accept it. But the folks that were really the late adopters to buy the old Mac systems, or the ones, the generation previous, they finally kind of converted to Mac, or they got themselves to go and buy that Mac, and now they got to go switch all their stuff out again. And so I think if you take a look at it from how a customer purchases and what segment of that kind of crossing the chasm that customers are in, innovative companies will get that pushback until you kind of cross that chasm. And then as you start getting the early majority and the late majority, that's when the mass market will really blossom for a lot of these devices. And we expect that to be over the next 6 to 12 months.
Yeah, you're just like every other hardware manufacturer. You have to keep up, and you have software compatibilities. And because you are not Apple, you can't control what they do, so you have to adjust.
Yep.
It doesn't seem to be such a hard equation. And what I think I'm hearing you say, and I want to be real clear to the audience, that all the apps you mentioned, they function just fine if you're on a current version of the OS and you've done all the Drobo firmware updates and everything. That's not a problem. It's when you're trying to mix that old software in, or the old system software in, that you start running into maybe some potential issues.
Yeah, so there's that, and then there's obviously the folks who are very tech savvy. They can actually go inside and tinker with some of the apps and specific things within the dashboard and those types of things. You get those. I like to call them the really smart guys. They go in and they start figuring things out. And, the system is just not made that way. It's not made for someone to be able to say, hey, I know what RAID 1, RAID 2, and RAID 0 and all these, RAID 6 are. I know what to kind of set up. The system is really made for, hey, you know what? I'm going to get this. I'm going to download the new firmware. I'm going to stick my drives in, and I'm going to plug it in, and then I'm going to go, right? Unfortunately, that's probably half the population that just kind of values that. But then the other half who are, kind of the engineers out there and the smart guys, they like to get in there and poke at things, right? And so that's kind of where we run into trouble as well. And so, I tell our customers, look, our product is really made for, storage you shouldn't be spending time on storage, right? It should be set up. It should be, and I actually advise people, my friends who have purchased, put it on dual disk redundancy, please, right? And so you might get a little bit less capacity, but in the event of a dual drive failure, absolutely, protected. So again, we're trying to make those things super easy for people. And part of it's educating them of, how you set it up. Why does dual disk redundancy matter? And I think we're starting to do a good job with that stuff.
Let's talk about that for a second. When you initially set up a Drobo, dual disk redundancy is not turned on.
So I don't know about the current firmware. We had discussions to have it turned on as a default, right? Again, I don't know if this one has it, but yeah, in the previous version of the dashboard, it was not.
Right, and that's kind of where I was going. Is that's a decision you could make, and sort of not enforce it on the user, but make them have dual disk redundancy, force them to turn it off if they're willing to take that risk. But if you have it on, you've given them maximum protection, but you've increased the overhead a little bit and therefore reduced the capacity of the Drobo just a little.
Yep.
So
yeah, for me it's a small tax to pay to have that protection.
Yeah, and I can tell you it is a very small price to pay if you really have data on your Drobo that you can't afford to lose. But it's also tough because then there's the value proposition. Somebody says, well, I buy, and I'm going to make the math easy for myself. I buy 5 1 gigabyte drives. So I should have 5 gigabytes, right? No. If you turn on, if you have the automatic 1 disk redundancy, you're a bit less. If you turn on 2, there's even less. So then they say, well, gee, what's the benefit here? Well, the benefit is that you're protected, you're double protected.
Yep, exactly. And most of the times when the system rebuilds or you go through that, that's where the dual disk redundancy, really happens, because that's when the disks are really, the mechanicals are working really hard to go rebuild. The other thing people do is, they buy the same drives from the same retailer, and most likely those drives come from the same batch. And hard drives will fail. We all know that. Sure. And so, one of the things I recommend is, hey, go get 2 drives from Amazon and go get 2 drives from B&H and get another drive from Best Buy, just so you kind of have a little bit of different lot of drives, so you can protect against any bad lot that's been shipped.
Yeah, Backbblaze always does a great job of of doing some analysis for their online service of drive failures and mean time between failures and those kind of things. It's always fascinating read, folks. If you haven't done that, go and check that out. It'll scare you in places that certain drives and certain batches, clearly have a little bit worse performance and others have a little bit better performance. It's amazing how much we think of drives as so generic, and they're really not.
Yep. Nope. I strongly suggest everybody to read Backbblaze's report. We get it quarterly.
So how about a really important question here?
Sure.
Why did you decide to put this colorful decal on the 5D3?
Couple things. One is, there's we are an innovative company, not only from a, software standpoint, but also from a design standpoint. And we want to make sure we really differentiate our products that are out there, right? We've gotten numerous inbound emails and calls from customers saying, hey, whatever happened to those gel skins you guys used to do? And so it allows, our customers are creative, right? And our customers like the fact that they can have something different. That's because that's just kind of how they're made. And so we decided moving forward, we're going to have the gel skin option for all our products going forward. So again, it's a little bit fun. It's a little bit different. It's not just a plain black faceplate, but it's easily removable if you don't want it, or you can stick it on and off, or put it on or take it off if you would like.
Yeah, it seemed just a little out of character when I first saw it. It's like, whoa, okay, I like it, but it seems a bit different than what Drobo's done before, except for the third-party gel skins.
You'd be shocked at how many people call us for these. You'd be shocked. I was like, we could probably make a business out of selling gel skins. Let's go get NFL to license all the football teams on it and see how we can sell gel skins for football fans who have Drobos.
I wouldn't be a bit surprised. There's still this fascinating desire, and I guess it's because these devices have become so personal to us. So much of our tech has, that people want to personalize it in some way, and hopefully it's a non-destructive, kind of benign option.
Yeah, one of the things we're thinking about launching a limited edition, and I'm having my operations team look at it right now, is having a silver casing, right? And so we're trying to do things a little bit different. We have obviously the Apple has that kind of silverish titanium finish. It would look nice on a desktop with the Apple with a similar type finish. So how can we make things that are fun, that look good, that are designed well, and that are easy to use? That continues to be our core mission.
And, I want to point out, too, that, and feel free to fill in, but we're talking about the high-end Drobos here, the real performance Drobos. But you also have Drobos that are 5 bays, USB 3 connects that are a little bit easier on the pocketbook for the average consumer who is just looking for that big pile of storage, and not as much necessarily the performance that is required for video editing or photo editing.
Sure. So we have our 5C product, right, which we, I believe, launched last year, and that's a USB Type-C connector, and that's coming on very strong in the PC market as well. And so that's half the price of this. I mean, obviously the speeds are a lot less, but again, for the everyday user, it's a perfect device to store and back up all your photos. And then we have the 5N2, which is a NAS device, which is priced a little bit higher. I think it's $499 MSRP. And that device is, again, more for kind of home sharing, small office sharing. And this is really a performance device, right? This is for someone who's, editing 4K video. I'd like to, target those customers where a lot of our competitors have fixed drives in there, and you're not able to either upgrade those drives or eject them in and out as you please. And that's kind of who it's targeted to now, because one of the knocks we used to get on the 5D is, hey, well, you don't perform as well as XYZ. And we fixed that performance thing. So not only do you get the performance now, but you get the ability to expand on the fly. I saw a YouTube video the other day on one of our competitors who was who they have fixed drives within their RAID device, so that it's not something you can rip and or replace and take out or hot swap. And the video was around how this guy unscrewed the whole thing. He couldn't figure out which of the drive was bad. There was no indicator telling him which drive was bad, so he had to go test each drive to see which one was bad. And he said it was a 7-day exercise to go fix that. So those are the things we want to eliminate, right?
And I've had the experience of walking in after work, and I've got a red light on one drive, and there was a time that would have been a bit of a panic. But now I've learned, okay, I've got one drive bad. I just need to go get another one, pop the red drive out, pop the new drive in, and let the Drobo do its thing, and I don't even have to bother to stop working.
Funny you mention that. I had the exact same thing happen, but I got that email alert system set up that it alerts me a drive is bad, and I was at work and it told me that one of my drives was bad, and my son was at home. And my son's 9 years old. And I said, hey, Devin, which light is red on my Drobo? And he said, Dad, the top one is. Okay, there's a drive right next to it. Eject the drive on the top and pop that other one in. And so, if a 9-year-old can do this, right? There was no screws. There was nothing where he had to open up and, figure out what it was. But a simple, 1-minute process to go get it done. And then 2 minutes later, hey, Dad, that drive's green now. So it's things like that really make me excited about our product.
Well, there are a lot of fine products out there for the right audience. And, I was thinking earlier about what you were saying about people decide to go in and tinker and play. I can do some serious damage to your Mac if I just open Terminal and start typing a few commands. It's no problem at all. So, if you better know what you're doing if you go in there. With some of these other apps, you better know what you're doing or you're going to screw things up. Probably not going to kill the Drobo, but you're certainly going to kill its functionality until you start over. So.
Yep. And look, I don't even know what Terminal is. So, I mean, that's the type of customer. And actually, I should send you this article that I just is going to be one of the fastest growing markets over the next 7 years. So right now it's about a $2 billion market. They're expecting it to be an $8 billion market. And one of the reasons is people are getting fed up with these cloud services where they have to continue to pay a monthly fee. The second is latency. And the third is the hostage of the data, right? So if you end up not paying that fee, you're stuck. And so, we're getting to a point where people are starting to realize, hey, you know what? I want control of my data, and these are the devices that are going to help me do that.
Yeah, and you don't want to have to hire an IT staff to do it.
Yeah, exactly.
And sure, and listen, I'll tell you right now, folks, you can go out and you can get some of these 6 and 10 terabyte deals that you see go by, they're great. And yeah, you can copy files over, and that's one place that your files are. And if you want to make it redundant, then you've got to do it by hand. And if something goes bad, well, then you have some legwork to do. With the Drobo, you don't have that, and that's why I fell in love with it as soon as the very first time Mark Fuccio introduced me to it, because once I understood it, it's like, why didn't somebody do this before, and why don't more drive manufacturers do this? So
yeah, and Chuck, how long have you been using them?
I have a Gen 1 sitting over here.
Exactly, and again, I'd like to reiterate the fact that we have 400,000 customers, units that are out there, right? Over 400,000, and so. The fact that, we have a small population that have had bad experiences for whatever reason, it's a very minute and tiny percentage of those products, that are out there. And so that kind of, as a CEO, it makes me feel good, but, we're still working hard to convert those guys that have had issues. And, I can, again, continue to talk to them. And get the feedback, and I filter that feedback into our product team.
That's all you can do. You research, you find out what the problem is. And if it's something beyond your control, well, it's beyond your control, because if they're doing what they should be doing, then it's going to work fine.
Yep.
So I know you have other things to do than sit here and chat with me. I believe you said you have an important meeting tomorrow that needs to be prepared for. So I want to thank you for taking the time. It's always good to chat with you. I hope you'll make another trip out to the East Coast sometime, and I'll buy you lunch.
Absolutely. I do want to give, we're going to run a special for only your viewers.
Oh, great.
The new 5D3. So the code is Voices 5D3. You'll get $50 off the new Drobo 5D3, and you'll get the gel skin with it. And so only for your viewers.
The ever important gel skin. That's the
ever important gel skin.
That'll make it go faster. And the website for that to place that order and use the code is drobostore.com.
Yes, sir.
Okay, perfect. Mihir, it's great to see you. Thanks again for the time.
Yep, thank you for your time, and again, look forward to connecting.
Definitely. We'll see you soon.
Okay, thanks, Chuck.
Folks, I'm Chuck Joyner. This is Mac Voices. One more time, I have never lost any data stored on a Drobo. Go get yours. Mihir just gave you $50 off. Please invest in a Drobo. Until the next time, thanks for watching. Visit MacVoices.com for show notes, links to subscribe, and to connect with Chuck on Twitter, Google+, Facebook, YouTube, Vimeo, SoundCloud, the Mac Voices blog, the Mac Voices Dispatch, our weekly newsletter, and on MacVoices Magazine, free on Flipboard that helps you do more with your Apple tech. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media at backbeatmedia.com, bandwidth provided by CacheFly at cachefly.com.